Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, June 8th, LA Galaxy getting ready to head off to St. Louis on Saturday. That's right, travel on Saturday. Play St. Louis, coming off of their U.S. Open Cup loss, losing a game, losing a chance at a cup, losing Chicharito. We're going to talk about all that stuff as we go through that. And I don't know if you've heard, there's big news, too. Even bigger than I think the Chris Klein being fired news. Leonel Messi coming to MLS. We'll talk about maybe some Galaxy connections on that and how the Galaxy fans might feel about Leonel Messi coming to MLS. So a lot of fun stuff here ready for you. Glad to have you on board with us today to help me talk to you about all this fun stuff. We're so glad to have her back. It's Sophie, the Cannon Nicolaou. Sophie, how you doing?
I am epic. Josh, how are you doing this fine Thursday Californian evening? Oh, summer is here. Can you smell it?
We're so close to summer, and like the June gloom broke for a little bit today, right? I mean, did you get outside? Did you feel the sun on your pasty white skin? I'm talking about me too, by the way.
I went to Whole Foods, popped out, had to grab some stuff. By the way, that place is way overpriced. Why do I keep going back?
Overpriced.
So overpriced.
They have some things I would say are pretty, like their meat selection is usually outstanding, like that type of thing. But that's like you could find that other places too, and you won't be as inflated a price.
You can find it all at other places, and I've noticed that when I've gotten produce from there, it goes rotten early. But anyway, I digress. I just went to get a chicken Caesar salad, and I ended up spending $80.
Yeah. That was you probably got the extra dressing. That's why it gets you every time. That's what I'm sure it is. But you got the sun. That's what was important, right? You got to feel it on your face a little bit. You could feel. We've had a very cool sort of spring, which has been nice. I'm hoping that translates into a cool summer. If there are weather nerds around, which I'm a weather nerd, I always enjoy paying attention to the weather. We have a 90+% chance of an El Nino, which means a wet fall and winter possibly coming around as well.
You translating international man of mystery. Look at you, just laying it out there.
So many different things, so many fingers, and all these different interests. My wife tells me I have to stop soon. That's what she says.
Let me tell you something, Mr. Interest Man.
Yes.
If this weather continues next fall and winter with the rain, what's the point in me being here? I left London for a reason. I don't want to live in Seattle either, because that's just not right. Come on, we've got to up our game here weather-wise. I don't know what's happening.
I heard Seattle's been having some nice weather, by the way. I've been seeing my friends post pictures. The sun's out. It's gorgeous. Everything's shifting.
Guns out.
Sun's out, guns out. That's right. That's how it goes. We haven't had you on the show in a little while. Chris Klein gone. I figured, I know you've been on some other podcasts talking about it. Figured you'd give everybody here just a chance. What's your brief, 2-minute sort of synopsis of everything that you think has happened up until this point? Too late, too soon, right time? Where are we at?
I think that it was long overdue, and now the team can move forward, clean slate. Although something tells me it's not super
clean yet? Yeah, it doesn't feel clean, does it? There's still there's hanging chads to throw it back to the 2000s.
Yeah, it reminds me of like when I was younger, my dad used to make me go to his dress factory in the summer, and I used to have to cut the cloths, the threads off the gowns before they'd be delivered to the retail stores. And it feels like LA Galaxy still have a few threads to chop right there, Josh.
Sophie, not only was that a great analogy, but not only did we learn just a little bit more about the epic life that Miss Sophie DeCannon Nicolaou has led. I mean, every time we talk to you, I feel like another chapter has been opened up. When we eventually do the Let's Hang Out with Sophie podcast one, it's going to be like 7 hours long. I'm like, so tell me about this dress factory. I mean, that sounds amazing in a lot of different ways, and the fact that you're able to stitch that together into some footballing, it's a masterclass. That's all I'm saying.
Excuse me, what about your pun?
I didn't mean it. I would love to take credit for it. I didn't even mean it, but I mean,
listen, just hang this first opening 10 minutes of podcasting. If there's a Louvre for podcasting, just hang this opening in the Louvre. As
I threw my pen when I was trying to make a thing. $10 super chat from Bobby. Bobby says, my favorite days of the week, Monday and Thursdays, because of the show. Thank you, Josh, for the last 15 years and to the future. Oh, thank you, Bobby. Appreciate that. Very nice.
I did get my hair cut while I was gone, and I'm not sure, but it was like this for a long, long while.
Okay.
And then I grew it out. And then obviously the beanies just hid everything in the wintertime. My dad's not impressed at all, has to be said. But I stopped trying to impress my dad a long time ago. Plus, he's a Man United fan, so it doesn't count.
He doesn't count. Okay, perfect. I understand. Yeah. I also got a haircut. Nobody can tell because my hair's falling out. All right, so that's interesting. I think we should also, before we sort of dive into this, and again, let's take it in broad strokes, is to talk about Leonel Messi coming to MLS. It feels a little strange as somebody who's covered the LA Galaxy, and I wasn't there at the beginning. I know you were whenever David Beckham came in. He was one of the reasons I probably came to the games and got interested in the LA Galaxy, and ultimately responsible probably for this podcast. So good job, David. Thanks for that, Bex. This feels a little strange not to see the LA Galaxy landing the biggest fish. This is on the scale of big fishes. All right. You had Beckham. Obviously gigantic, and his reach outside of football, inside of football was great. My mom knows who David Beckham is. My mom knows who Leonel Messi is, right? Like, if my mom knows who you are, you have to be pretty high up on the football pecking order whenever it comes.
Right.
She didn't know who Zlatan was, but she got acquainted with Zlatan very quickly. So like different levels, different things. To see the LA Galaxy be able to make these moves in the past, and it was David Beckham who did all these things, and quite honestly, it's David Beckham who paved the way for Leonel Messi to come to Miami. If you really want to follow all the chips and him being the owner of Miami and all that fun stuff, it feels large. It feels like something I think I'm excited to see sort of how the league embraces it. What are your thoughts on Messi?
I'm really happy that you have brought up this subject, because I know that the league are getting a ton of credit, as they should, and Messi is getting a ton of credit for turning down the Saudis in a week where sports took an absolute pounding,
right,
with Liv and the PGA, and for him to choose the US and the league here over that was just glorious. However, David Beckham deserves so much credit. And I hope he gets it. And I hope that I was saying to someone who I was speaking to about a column I'm going to do, that I hope that people in England recognize just how great of an export this guy is. I don't care what you think about, in terms of his endorsement deals and all this other stuff. And, everybody's out there making money and doing stuff. David Beckham is the single most important sportsman of our generation. And I put him up there. Now, I'm not talking talent-wise. I'm talking influence-wise.
Right.
Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, David Beckham, Serena Williams, Roger Federer.
Tom Brady?
All these. Tom Brady. Okay. Maybe he's got a league behind him.
Right.
I
LeBron
feel like
James, maybe? LeBron James? Kobe Bryant, maybe? In that? Or am I adding too many people?
I think you're adding too many people, because I'm talking about like people who've really transcended. I mean, LeBron has, but he's a pop culture icon. Yes, Jordan and Woods and Serena, they're just on a totally different level. And Beckham is not on their level talent-wise, but he's on their level when it comes to iconic status and presence. And the fact that he played for LA Galaxy is huge. And the fact that somehow he's not owning LA Galaxy or part of LA Galaxy or owning this team. To me, it still seems like I understand his deal and how he carved it, Josh, but the fact that he's so distant and he's with another, and he's built his own thing outside of it is kind of painful in some ways. However, he deserves a ton of credit. He's the instigator of all of this. It's because of him all of this is happening. The league grew because of him. Go look at the stats when they compared when Beckham came to when he left in terms of marketing, sponsorship, dollars, the expansion, all of it. David Beckham is the reason Messi is here today. And let me say, the signing of Messi is definitely more gargantuan than Beckham.
Yeah.
More on a football status.
Right.
Because on a iconic, cool brand status, I still think Beckham was here. And Messi is definitely, obviously bigger than him when it comes to actual talent on the pitch.
Yeah, MLS going all in on this, as you would expect them to. It's going to be interesting to see how the deal eventually concludes, right? Because MLS came out with a statement and basically said, listen, nothing's been signed yet. We're glad he's coming, and we're glad he wants to come here, but we don't have a deal, but we expect that we will. I think Leonel Messi also expects he will. It's one of those things, but talking about some market share with Adidas and Apple and sort of what they're going to be able to put together. And I know a lot of people sort of worry about how the money gets spent and all. This is, and it's overused, but a rising tide lifts all boats. This is good for every single team in the league, and I think it's
incredible.
You already saw what it did to ticket prices, which was fun to watch, right?
That was amazing. There's no tickets left, by the way, as well, Josh.
Yeah,
they're all sold out.
I will say this: I did enjoy it not being the team that I covered, so I didn't have to be like sweating and like typing and like calling people on the phone and doing all sorts of stuff. So now you look at Inter Miami, who doesn't have a coach. It seems like Tata Martino is coming in. I know that they were finalizing deals with him. They had Busquets possibly coming, and there's like a whole bunch of
Angel Di Maria is being talked about coming. Maybe Cesc Fabregas. Although I think
eventually MLS rules will get in the way of some of these. But the bottom line is that Miami is going to have a real overhaul. And what does Miami look like after the summer versus before the summer? Very interesting to find out, and whether or not that whole thing. I also wonder if Phil Neville got fired when he got fired, knowing that Messi was coming in and that they could go after Tata, and like you weren't going to bring Messi in and have Phil Neville coach Lionel Messi, right? That probably wasn't going to happen.
He was due, wasn't he? Let's be honest.
He was. So anyway, I think I'm really interested to see how they build out a team around Messi and what that does, and whether it's a Zlatan problem or whether it is an early David Beckham problem. Remember, David Beckham didn't have success. I know everybody loves to pretend that he did. He did not.
No.
And in fact,
it was horrible at the beginning.
And he wanted to go back and play for, I think he went back and played for AC Milan for a little while. He got injured, I think, playing for AC Milan, right?
Yes.
And there was a whole deal that he wanted to still try to make the Olympic team, if I remember correctly, and then that didn't happen. There was a whole bunch of just craziness going on in those years. But the Galaxy were also a mess. Surprise, Galaxy's still a mess. Just there was a lot of success in between those times.
They were a mess because the signing was incredible, but he thought that he could do it his way, and he realized, that he couldn't. And Red Hullet was a disaster that whole time. And I was more of a fan. I was going to the games more before I started covering. Really, I would say the tail end of 10. But 2010 was when I really got into covering the team. And it was a mess, and Beckham had a lot to do with that. But then when he embraced the culture and he understood that it's totally different, and then of course managers changed and the rest is history. Right. And what a fun ride that was. And Inter Miami fans are in for a treat, aren't they? Let's be honest. We've lived it, we've breathed it, and LA Galaxy has always been the place of stars. And I was saying to someone today, it's not just because I want them to sign a star, but it just fits the 5-star shirt team. And I think this is a wake-up call for LA Galaxy in terms of everything that's happened over the last few years, Josh, that they really need to become different mentally, culturally again in order to be elite or considered to be elite again.
As you said, still some loose threads hanging around, right? I'm going to use that now from here on out. There's loose threads, right? So I feel like things can move in the right direction now. I feel like that there's some room to operate, but I also think when you're talking about what the LA Galaxy do, they need a president. They need somebody who's going to stabilize this club and invest in the ways that Greg Vanney has been appropriating the dollars, right? We heard from Siggy, we heard from, Kurt Analfo, we heard from Guillermo Barros-Schelotto, we heard from Dennis Ciclosa about this investment that was needed in the infrastructure of the club. And it seems like Vanny has at least gotten that moving in the right direction. You can say what you want about the results this year. That's fine. I have no problems with it. There's another part that I think is sort of coming to a head to understand that Greg Vanny can't do all these jobs, that he can't do it, and nor should anybody expect him to. Now, I think he did them because who else was going to do them, right? If you're put in that situation, and you're like, in order for me to succeed, I need all these things. And if there's nobody who's going to give me all these things, and they tell me that I can be in charge of giving myself all these things, then I'm going to give myself all these things, right?
Yeah.
And so
he looked tired last night in the the dude must be tired.
He must be. So it's a crazy. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff that sort of needs to happen now, and so around the presidents and everything like that, there's going to be rumors that start to come out. I wouldn't be surprised. Just whenever you look at this and hearing some of the rumors that are sort of skipping around, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than one person, right? If it's possibly two people. Just because of how much work there needs to be done whenever you look at everything. There's a business side of soccer, right? Which is like all the how do we make money, ticket sales, sponsorships, all the jerseys, all this there's that side. And then there's the technical side, the soccer side. And you really need people focusing on each of those sides. And I'm not sure, in a perfect world, you have a president who sits up here and he has a guy over here who does soccer business and a guy over here who does the technical side. And so business and technical, and then those two do things. And whenever a decision needs to be made that maybe affects both of those, then the president gets involved, right? Yeah. That's how I would see that pyramid. But I don't think... with how big a club the LA Galaxy wants to be, I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't co-presidents. I
think that's the last thing this team needs is dual decision making. You don't need another. You're
gonna get one that deals strictly with the technical side of soccer, right? So that's gonna take care of that. I think that's nice. I like the pathway there, as the pathway is right now. So if you have Vanny, who basically does all the jobs. He's not doing this business side. I would imagine that in the interim, Tom Braun, who is one of the business side guys, who we've had on one of our podcasts before. I really like Tom. Tom's a smart guy. I imagine he's sort of taking over the business side stuff right now. I imagine Vanny's focusing on the technical side. But again, Vanny's your head coach. You want him to focus just on... He shouldn't be talking about the academy this week. You know what I mean? Like, that's not important for him.
No, and it's not, and it should be taken off his plate, to be honest with you. He's got enough to deal with, and I know we're going to get onto it, especially after yesterday's game and stuff. But let me ask you this, because should LA Galaxy be treating themselves not as a new franchise, but I almost feel like when I said at the top of the show, clean slate, something about this they have to act like almost not the new kid on the block, but who've done it before and come together in a different situation and are a bit wiser about their experiences. It feels to me like they need a little bit of that chip on their shoulder attitude to rebuild. Hold on a second, we're not done yet. Type of thing. Someone to come in who has that bravado, but with not a cockiness, with a confidence.
You need that. I mean, you have to have something like that. By the way, Lex asked a good question that fits right into this. $5 super chat. Thank you, Lex. With maybe 3 designated player spots open and a presidential vacancy spot to fill, is this offseason the most important in LA Galaxy history? Yes. It feels like it, right? I mean,
yes.
We have certainly, listen, I'm not one that's going to tell you to give up on 2023. I know there's not lots of people there. It's just not mathematically for me, and this team could easily get on a run. I've seen them play well in spurts. If they ever strung it together for any sort of period of time, I could see them winning 3, 4, 5 matches in a row, and then all of a sudden they're in a playoff position again, right? So don't completely write it off. I think that there's still room to do that. I talked to Gaston Brugman after the loss last night, and he still has it in his mind, I think, that he believes that this team can be good. And every player I talk to, I know they're talking to the press. Sometimes we talk to them on the record, sometimes we talk to them off the record. I'll tell you off the record, certainly frustrations, but they still believe. They believe in the team, they believe in Vanny, they believe that if they keep doing the right things, that they will eventually be rewarded for what they're doing. And, that's one of the things. I know a lot of people are sort of sitting here saying, Vanny should be fired. And I'll say this, until you have a president, leave Greg Vanney where he's at. You're not hurting yourself by leaving Greg Vanney where he's at, because this is the guy who's building out all the infrastructure.
But there's no more excuses on the pitch. I heard the show with, I think it was you and the Panda. And when you, was it you and the Panda, or were you talking about, can they go on a run now? Maybe it was Eric at the Hammer.
Might have been, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, hold your jets, lads. It's one result.
Yep.
And, has the pain been lifted? And these are professional footballers. They've got to go out and get results. So for me, Greg Vanney is still on the clock.
Yeah.
There's no excuses now. And yes, I know it's been tumultuous and it's been a pretty awful situation this season. But, you still have to go out on the pitch and try and win games. And they've been really poor at that this season.
They have, they've been extremely poor at it. I'm done with saying, is this a turning point, right? Stop it with the turning points. I'm done. There hasn't been one. We will know the turning point.
New rule.
If you go back, whenever they actually have a turn and then they make some runs and they do some stuff, then you can go back and say, well, I guess this was the turning point. That was the turning point. I do think, and I've talked to several former players and former players on this team who said that the fact that Klein is gone now, the fact that the fans will be back, that lifts some pressure. There was extra weight. You don't need to ever put extra weight on footballers' shoulders. They have enough stuff to do. The game is already slim margins whenever you look at it. So anytime you're putting extra stuff like they did with AEG, putting pressure on basically the entire Galaxy organization to save Chris Klein's job, and allowing that to sort of play out, that's a lot. And when you have a team that wasn't playing good, and I think somebody said it today, and I really like this. We were told that they were going to be deliberate in who they brought in, and that there was no hurry to things, and that there was sort of like, we're going to take our time, we're going to get it right? This was the whole preseason getting through that. We're not going to rush to make signings. But that whole attitude, and maybe it was the game, that got canceled at the Rose Bowl against LAFC. There was all this sort of building up to it, and then there was a letdown, and then they sort of come in. But there was all this being deliberate, and that deliberateness turned into sluggishness. And sluggishness turned into what we're seeing with the LA Galaxy now, which is a team that can't seem to get out of its own way, even whenever they play frantic with their hair on fire and everything else they do, which hurts them more than anything.
Maybe it was by design as well. We don't know. Maybe they've said, we're going to give it X amount of games. We're going to see how far this goes, how far the fans, will take it. They stood their ground, and rightfully so. They have every right to do that. And I was kind of impressed with the fact that they kept to it, because football fans can be fickle, but they wanted to make the point and they added the pressure. And now, it's time to go back and support this team. They need you more than ever.
That's it.
And this can be the new way. And I was hoping, I expect sold out stadiums. I expect fans to come and support the team now. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. And I really think at some point, everyone needs to start looking in the rearview mirror when it comes to Chris Klein, if this club really, really wants to move forward. And that includes the fans as well.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see midweek game coming up against Sporting Kansas City next week. So game on Sunday, game on Wednesday. Wednesday night is Sporting Kansas City. So very much there. El Traffico Radio, by the way, our good friend Mike Gray. $5 super chat says, between Sophie's stylish hair and Josh's rugged good looks, you can tell it's an LA-based podcast. Anyway, carry on. I mean, we are pretty much, I would say we have faces for radio, but clearly we've transcended that at this point, Sophie. We are TV stars out here on YouTube, right?
This is the beautiful thing about today's world. You can be anything, any size. Hey, look, when I was in the 90s, you were going up against Kate Moss and Cindy Crawford back in the day.
We wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it. I don't think I can't. I didn't have the legs, and I look horrible in high heels. So it didn't work for me. But yeah, you're right. We're somehow surviving. So we look now. Let's talk a little bit about the game. 3-2 loss. Interesting comeback. I thought the Galaxy had no business being in this game.
Interesting. I like how you said interesting comeback.
Well, I was sitting there and I'm watching the game, and you watch that first half, and RSL had more of the possession. RSL had more of the dangerous chances. RSL had the one goal that they scored in the 18th, 19th minute. It was well taken. The Galaxy defense was allowing too much space, was too soft. You had no cover from the midfield. The midfield was sort of off in La La Land too, so RSL was able to run down the middle, pass out to the sides. And listen, I said this, if you watch Gomez on RSL side, he was running against Aude, I believe, on the left-hand side. So Caligari. Left-hand side for Gomez, right-hand side for Caligari. He has speed. And I'm like, God, if the Galaxy could just get that guy, just for a little bit, they would be so much better, because the biggest thing that I saw in this game, and it was that the Galaxy don't have speed. They don't have the wing. They don't have the ability to get in behind. I'm going to show you an average position chart for Real Salt Lake, and you can't tell me that they're not just sitting there, Sophie, plugging up the middle. All right, here, I'm going to show it to you now, okay? Are you ready? So I want to show you what the LA Galaxy's average position chart looks. Actually fairly spread out a little bit. Chicharito out there on an island. One pass that finally went to him was the one that ended up injuring him. So whenever he finally got the ball in there would have been a link in there, but unfortunately, it was blown dead as soon as he touched it, because he got injured. And I don't mean to laugh. It's just a horrific sort of timing in what he was doing. But the Galaxy, they're not balanced, because the Galaxy are lopsided. They have been lopsided. Greg Vanney talked about it afterwards with Douglas Costa in there and being able to play Douglas on the right for a little bit. At least they got a little more balance out of the formation, and they actually attacked up the right-hand side, which is something they normally don't do. They normally just attack from the left-hand side. So here is the Galaxy's average position. Again, fairly balanced. Okay with that. Not a worry. Okay. And then go into RSLs. Right down the middle. Right down the middle.
Wow.
Just stack everybody down the middle. Why? Because the Galaxy don't have wings. They don't have speed on the wings that is going to hurt you. And listen, this isn't if I saw this from my team, I would say this is atrocious. This is not a team that wins whenever you look at how they were able to how the Galaxy forced them at least to collapse in the middle. But you would be happy about the tactics, Sophie, if the Galaxy had anything on the outside that was able to open up and therefore use the space that RSL was giving them, which was the wings. Mm-hmm. You don't see that.
Are you going to bring up that other stat now, or are you?
Which other stat?
Because you're in terms of, I love these two. I love a Josh chart, by the way.
Yes.
The passing.
Oh, yes. I'll bring it up right now for you. Line breaking passes completed. Gaston Brugman, 212. Ricky Puig, 159. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are down on Brugman and who are down on Puig's distribution. But when you look at that stat, I retweeted it, I said, this is being wasted. There is nothing to go there, right? That's what I see. I don't see they're making these passes, but there's nothing coming because of these passes. And I don't think it's their fault. So yes.
I love that you showed me this earlier, because this is a perfect example of how actually the attacking line are making their midfield look really poor, right? And I lived this, and I know I give my little Arsenal examples, but there was a time where people thought Ozil, right? And of course he became who he did. However, sometimes if the forward line aren't making the moves and aren't moving into the spaces or finding those spaces, half of being a good team is what you do without the ball, and that movement is critically important. I feel like Chicharito's movement this season has been sluggish a little bit. However, he still tries to find spaces, but the speed of which he finds those spaces isn't quick enough for the way these guys are thinking when they're making those passes. And that was something that happened at Arsenal with Ozil. Sometimes they're thinking a little faster than the forward line. Right. And then when that doesn't mesh, it looks really, really bad up front. And you can see from those numbers, it's not necessarily the guys who are making the pass who aren't making things happen.
Greg brought up an interesting point, and let's be very fair, at least fair in my understanding of soccer and football, is that I don't often think of things until Greg says, I didn't play soccer at a high level. I played soccer in high school, right? I mean, it's not a high level. I understood the game from a defender's perspective. I still understand the game from a defender's perspective. I've been watching it for 15 plus years on a basically professional basis, right? Watching games, and I sit there and, if you ever sit next to me at press box, we can have a great talk about the game as it's going. I love looking at things and love people pointing out things. So I'm always learning. Vanney said something about the being too vertical with the passes and not more angular, right? And he was sort of angular at the diagonals. And I said, yeah, of course, because anytime you're too vertical with passes, you're not allowing the receiver of the pass to do much with it whenever there's guys in the way, right? If you're straight on, there's no angle to the ball, right? So it's easier sometimes to exploit holes in defenses and stuff with angular passes, with the diagonal passes instead of ones that are straight ahead. And he thought they were too straight ahead in that first half, and then they did a much better job, which they did in the second half, of exploiting and finding spaces more on angular on angles, right? That resonated to me. So
yeah, it's very much the triangle, right?
Yes.
And again, that's something that Arsenal were very successful with this season in particular, is like playing that triangle. And half of that, and yes, Phil Jackson's triangle yielded gazillion
yes, it did.
Championships, right? And in football especially, it's half of the battle is the movement and what a player does when they don't have the ball. And that is becoming even more important in the modern game, is because the game moves so fast. So how the player moves when he doesn't have possession becomes, so important. And I think that's one of the areas where LA Galaxy are very inconsistent in, is that movement.
Yeah.
I think that they have a situation where their defense, when the starters aren't starting together with the starting goalkeeper, Josh, are not cohesive. It's not like a defense that comes together and they know how to play with each other. And I think that was evident in the first half against Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Was that it felt, just discombobulated.
It felt individual, right? It felt like the defense is here and we're all going to play together, and then the midfield is over here and we're all going to play together, and the forward is up here and we're all going to, and you can't have that. And there was too much space between the midfield and the defense, and then too soft through the middle. So yes.
Exactly. And that's causing problems. And I think the midfield have seemed frustrated. You can't have a player like, Ricky in the side and not have more offensive, success.
Right.
You just can't. And he's not even the best passer on that chart that you put
right.
up.
Brugman was, yeah. I mean, Ricky has an extremely high, but I mean, also the ability for Ricky Puig to take on people. I mean, again, you look at what you saw against RSL, and Ricky Puig had another really nice game that has almost nothing to show for it, right? And so he's being blocked. And somebody said, well, the reason the Galaxy had so much success over the last 10 to 12 games of last season is because nobody knew how to play Ricky Puig. And I'm like, really? So you didn't really? I go, guess what? He's still doing the same stuff he was doing last year. He just doesn't have the outlets. And the outlets were Grandsir. Remember how much Grandsir came alive in the last 10 to 12 games on the outside, right? Tyler Boyd is trying to fill that void. Boyd the Void. Tyler Boyd is trying to fill that void, but he needs more help. You saw Douglas Costa come into the game and score a goal. Like I said, I refuse to trust Douglas Costa for any reason whatsoever.
My boy.
He takes that shot a million times every game, and every once in a while they go in. I'm happy with that. Don't get me wrong. That's what you want to see happen, right?
You can't rely on him though.
No, you can't.
Where's the reliability?
No, none.
This is problem with this team. The reliability factor is just not there, and the forward line have dried up, and that is a huge problem, especially when you don't have an outlet really for other goals. This is not a goal scoring team.
Nope.
Those goals aren't coming from midfield.
Nope.
So if they're not coming from that forward line, where are they coming from?
Yeah, I mean you're getting some goal. You're getting guys like Memo Rodriguez, who was out with a thigh injury in this game. He scored a really nice goal. You got a goal from Aude from distance, right? He scored a goal. You get a goal from Tyler Boyd. He scored a goal, right? Like you're getting these, but again, where are the forwards scoring? And listen.
But Ricky needs to score more, right? We've seen wonder goals from the other two as well. I mean, he really, for the type of player that he is, he needs to score more goals from that position, definitely.
You know what? The Galaxy, to me, and maybe you tell me if you think my observation is correct or not, and I haven't done the stats on it, the Galaxy seem to have so many block shots. So many like they are not opening
because
the
they
space.
take bad shots.
Yeah, they take bad shots in traffic. I mean,
yes.
And I'm all for taking shots through traffic, by the way. You can score plenty of goals, but they're not creating the separation because it feels like the movement is too predictable, or basically if you're having teams who are cramming through the middle, which is what RSL did, cram through the middle, there's all these bodies in the way. Whenever you go to shoot in the middle, you have to have the wings. I think we saw this coming a little bit when the Galaxy didn't get a winger at the end of the transfer window. It was it was a question I asked Will Kuntz whenever he came on the show, which was, why did you guys not make that move? You can go back and listen to our interview with him. By the way,
you like him? Did that go well? I haven't heard it yet. I will listen to it though.
I really like him.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
we
listen to it. I
talk.
haven't had a
We
chance.
talk a lot. I think Sophie, you and I have talked about it, and I'm sure we talked about it on the show enough that. And I say this almost to ad nauseum. I'm sure there's a drinking game involved in here pretty soon. That when you're confident about your job and you know what you're doing, and you know that you know how to do the things that you say you're doing, you can talk about it, and you talk about it freely. Dennis DeClose used to come on the show all the time, didn't he? Right?
Yeah.
Dennis was like, "Let me talk." He would text me.
No fear.
Yeah, he'd be texting me like, "Hey, I want to come on the show tonight." Great, let's go. You know, the whole deal. And it was like he did an hour show with just me, and all we did was talk about youth development. You know why? Because he loves youth development and he's good at it. Right? So like you do all these things. I think Will is one of those guys. He knows what he's doing. He wants to talk about it. He'd be happy to talk to fans about it. Right? Not an issue. He's not one of these guys who's like, I don't know how to do my job, and so I'm going to go run and hide. Right? So I really do think he's a good guy. I want to talk. You said the forwards aren't scoring. We need to talk about Chicharito's injury, going down in the first half,
What's
second
the news
half.
on that?
We don't know. Really interesting. If you watch the video, he stretches for the ball, and then whenever he stretches for the ball, he's basically signaling to the bench as he's falling. It looks like it's a left leg injury if you watch the video, but he has said it, and Vanny has confirmed it. It's right. It's a right knee injury. Okay, he was supposed to have an MRI. We imagine today, and so we imagine they know what is up with Javier. Interesting that he was carried off the field. Interesting that he was, had a towel over his head, and you saw guys sort of consoling him on that. Apparently, there were some, and we have some listeners who were at the game. Excuse me, who were at the game and were sitting right behind the LA Galaxy bench, and there were some RSL fans who were standing up after he was hurt, and they were yelling at Chicharito, being like, "You're such a flopper! Nobody touched you!" Blah blah blah. And the Galaxy bench apparently had some things to say to an RSL fan about that. They were not going to take that. They were like, "Look at this guy. He's going to get carried off the field in the stretcher. Like, sit down, be quiet," that type of thing, right? And so I thought that was really sort of telling. Chicharito went out and put on his Instagram story a story from the bus. He was basically on the bus. I
saw that.
Yeah, I don't know if he was the first one on the bus or if it looks like he was the first one on the bus, that type of thing.
He looked like he was sitting at the front of the bus too.
Yeah. So maybe he got in there and had a little quiet moment. He goes, "Hey, I appreciate everybody at RSL for taking care of me," and the whole deal. And he goes, "It's a right."
Wait, do you like the front of the bus or the back of the bus, real quick? School trips, would you go to the back or stay at the front?
Back. The back is where it's at. I mean, that's okay.
Anyway,
but no, just hearing him talk about it, there seems a certain resignation in his voice that he knows it's probably not good. All speculation. Please let me be very clear. Let me be clear to the LA Galaxy. Let me be clear to Chicharito that we do not know as of Thursday what the severity of the injury is. We imagine that when the LA Galaxy have press on Friday, that somebody will ask, and that we will then have the answer to that information. So anything you're hearing on this podcast right now, especially in the next couple minutes, is speculation, which we're allowed to do. Okay? Just pointing that out. Maybe I had some people who were not so happy with speculation, but we're allowed to speculate. That's how it works.
Gotta speculate to accumulate. Good old 80s saying right there. For the kids who don't know.
I don't know. That one was before me. That was probably, you're not that much older than me.
I am actually. I think I am.
No, I was born in 81.
Oh, dear Lord. I'm so much older than you.
No, you're not.
This is just outrageous.
No,
you
you're
were
not.
born in 1981.
Yeah, I was born in 1981. Yes. So I will be 42 years old here on July 23rd.
To my first football match in 81. I mean, this is
And you were
insane.
still in diapers.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I've revealed my age on this show prior. I will not this evening.
That's good. You don't have to do that.
Let's just say I'm old enough to be your older sister.
Okay, got it. So you were going to be 44. Congratulations. Great. Good job. Okay. So anyway, Chicharito goes down. We don't know what the severity of that is. There did seem to be and Kevin Baxter was on the call afterwards, and he was sort of trying to get Greg Vanny to sort of say, like, what is it? Like, by the way, your demeanor, like, I'm trying to read, you don't seem maybe it's it. And Greg's like, don't read anything into my demeanor. I don't, I'm just telling you what it is. And all this stuff. It was great. I was like, okay, cool. Fun. But it looks serious. It's non-contact. He goes down. He gets carted off. I would anticipate that it's not a short time. That's just my guess. I don't think he's going to be back this weekend. It was nothing. He was fine. That type of thing. I would say that that's probably not the case. Now, let's speculate. Let's go crazy. Because why not? Because there are certainly people, because of his age, because of the possibility of a ligament injury. And we have a bunch of really awesome guys in the Discord who have like sports science degrees and can talk about this stuff. Oh my God, so much fun.
Love this guy.
Cam in our Discord is amazing. And then we have Sarah, who's a big fan of the show. She can talk you some injuries too. So it's a lot of fun to sort of like kick things around. So if it's a ligament injury, if it's something that's severe, if it is, then Chicharito could be done for the rest of the year. And if he's done for the rest of the year, Sophie, then that's likely the last time you ever saw him playing in LA Galaxy uniform. Those are, again, speculation, but let's go down this road a little bit, okay? So people were asking me almost as soon as Chicharito got carted off the field about the season-ending injury list and what that does. If you're not aware, MLS has this list. It's called the season-ending injury list. And if you get put on the season-ending injury list, or the SEI, as I like to call it, if you get put on the SEI, then there are certain rules that apply that allow a team to go and replace you. Because basically an injury is a hardship and they're going to give you certain relief from these things. Now, if the LA Galaxy were to place Chicharito on the season-ending injury list, and they did it before the start of the secondary transfer window, they could replace him like for like with a designated player with an international spot, because he's an international designated player, right? So
Did you just say international?
Yes, I did. So they could do it. Now, here's the fun part. They have to list him there before the window opens in the secondary transfer window in order to get budget cap relief.
When is that?
Budget cap relief is, a designated player has a certain budget hit to the salary cap, right? No,
but when's the second window?
Oh, coming up in July. I think July 1st.
July.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's time.
Okay.
So July 1st, that type of thing. So there's a way to get relief from this. So the way to replace Chicharito straight up, you could actually get a designated player, and it could be an international designated player. Now, isn't it fun how things always come home to roost for the LA Galaxy? You get an ITC ban in the summer transfer window. That would apply in this situation as well. So the Galaxy could, in theory, if Chicharito was done, Sophie, put him on the season-ending injury list, and then go out and get a designated player to replace him in the summer window. Except that we know that the LA Galaxy are on an ITC ban. They're not allowed to bring in anybody from outside the league into their team during the summer. This is part of the sanctions that were played down. So
even in this situation,
as a matter of fact, I had a discussion about this today. I am talking from what I consider fairly solid knowledge on this subject. Okay, so follow along with me, everybody, because we're now going to undo something that we possibly have done. Okay, I know. Hang in there, Soph.
Okay.
Will Kuntz, whenever he was on, talked about being able to sign free agents outside the window. And he said specifically after the window. Okay. He said after the window closes, we're able to go out and get an international free agent in order to bring him into the team. Teams have always been able to do this. Any team can do this. If it's a free agent, somebody who's not under a contract, you don't need to do it inside of a transfer window, so you can bring them in at any time. It was hinted at that perhaps that meant that they couldn't do it before the window closed. Before the window opened, right? So the window opens in July, the Galaxy could go out and sign a free agent in June, right? That type of thing. And it was sort of hinted that perhaps that was not the case. I'm telling you that is the case. Technically speaking, the LA Galaxy could go out right now, and this is not even regarding the season-ending injury list. The LA Galaxy could go out and bring in an international that was a free agent, as long as they were a free agent during this time before the window opens. They can also do it after the window opens. Okay? So
is Ronaldo allowed in the United States?
He is. I know people love to pretend that he's not, but no, he absolutely is.
Yeah, okay.
So the LA Galaxy have the ability to add internationals on either side of the transfer window, even with the sanctions in place. They just can't do it during the window, okay? That is the restriction. I always thought that was the case. I'm speaking from fairly good knowledge on this, that is the situation. Okay, that's how it is. So if the LA Galaxy were to put Chicharito on a season-ending injury list, it would open up a designated player spot and it would open up an international slot. As long as the player was making equal to or less than the salary charge, the salary budget charge, which, by the way, is only like $350,000 for designated players. Don't get me into all this stuff. It gets crazy. But
That
basically,
limits the pool.
you could sign another player for $7.4 million and they would take over that same spot, and Chicharito's contract is up at the end of the year, and you could basically get a designated player this before the window or after the window, if was the case. You could also, do you want to blow your mind? You could also get a designated player from somewhere within the league. Okay, let's say there was a designated player who was somewhere in the league, maybe in Miami. Miami wants to get rid of all its designated players because they need all those DP slots open. And you're like...
Messi.
Yeah, you know who I was thinking? Joseph Martinez.
I thought you were, I was joking about Messi.
I do like Messi, though. That's a good idea. You're right.
Yeah.
So, like Joseph Martinez, who possibly could be extra to what Miami needs, and they want an open designated player spot, the Galaxy could sign him inside the window because his ITC already resides in the United States. Okay? It's already here. It's already with the league. Remember, the league is the owner of all contracts, right? Am I... chat room.
Excuse me.
Chat room. Hold on. Let me check.
I'm just going to go old school stuff.
And
Give me a
start
minute.
writing some stuff
I'm going
down.
to start writing some notes.
Chat room, did I lose you guys on any of this?
Let me see. Are they still around? I'll check in on them.
Yeah.
You keep going.
So what I want to say is that, one, I don't know that the LA Galaxy should do this, Soph. All right? Let's be very clear, because I think there's some benefits. But we also know that this transfer this summer is going to be a very big transfer market. We know things are planning on going. And when you see the movement that could already be happening inside the league, there is a possibility for the LA Galaxy to add players, even international players outside the window, to this roster still. So I don't want to give people false hope, because I also think the Galaxy are going to be very, and we'll use this word again, I think they're going to be very deliberate with what they want and make sure that it doesn't hurt their long-term interests. But if somebody pops up that goes crazy, right? It's a big deal. It's a big name. By the way, I think the Galaxy might want to sit pat and sort of see Antoine Guesman came out and said that he was going to be available after the Euros in 2024. So maybe the Galaxy keep open a designated player spot for Guesman possibly coming to LA. Right?
Well, he loves his basketball. He's probably looking for a season ticket at the.
I think AEG could probably hook him up, right? I mean, I'm not, listen. Whenever it comes to signing players, give them whatever they want. Whenever in terms of what AEG already owns, right? AEG already can get you into that state. Let them in, right? Get them all that stuff. So
just hold. Just pause there for a minute. Yes. Do you think Greg Vanny believes that this team could get to the playoffs?
Yes.
As they are.
Yes.
Even with an injured Chicharito.
That's harder. But I will tell you this.
Remember what happened last season?
Yeah, I know. No, last season the summer transfer window saved the LA Galaxy, right?
Correct.
And so I still think that there's a possibility. As they are is a tougher question. I know I said yes right away. I think I was doing that for dramatic effect. I absolutely believe that everybody in that locker room currently believes they can make the playoffs.
If they believe they can make the playoffs, then you don't roll that dice. You blow everything up and you go and you build a team.
Right, because there's a possibility, you have
season.
2 designated player spots opening with Douglas Costa's contract and Chicharito. And people keep saying that Ricky Puig is going to leave because he's not. Chill out. Wait to see how the
Who's
season
gonna
plays out.
buy him? He's not.
I mean, lots of people would buy him, Sophie. I mean, I'm not saying that he's reached that pinnacle yet.
He's not done anything yet. He's not done anything yet. Sorry. He's not done anything yet. He's yet to be proven at that level.
That doesn't mean that the LA Galaxy wouldn't get an offer in the anywhere between $15 and $25 million range. They
would, but if I'm a top European team or I've not seen it yet. He scored a few couple wonder goals. You don't hold your shirt up in front of the enemy in a game.
Have zero problems with that. Do not care. That's like bat flipping. That's like bat flipping in baseball.
I just think when you've fallen that far, you don't do that in a cup game against kids. That's embarrassing.
You know what the best part about this is? This game is self-regulating. He's going to have to play against those guys, and he's going to have to do it.
Do it at the Rose Bowl or do it at their gaff, like in a proper game. And I'm not saying proper game. I love the FA Cup. I'm just saying with the opponent.
I understand where everybody's coming from. I'm just saying soccer's supposed to be fun, and I don't care. How about that? La la la. Do not care. go ahead and do it, have fun, and then you have to deal with the repercussions. I don't have to deal with the
Look, if
repercussions.
there's a set of fans that kind of deserve because they give as good as they get, it's them, right? So there's no doubt about that.
But what listen, I think that there are more options to the LA Galaxy than people understand this summer. So I think that somebody possibly being an addition, and I think it would have to be the right fit, because again, you're right. Otherwise, don't risk this, right? You're not going to risk it. The Chicharito thing being on the season-ending injury list is more just if that happens, you've already heard it here, and you can educate all your friends on what that means. The Galaxy can basically replace him, right? And they have to pay Chicharito, by the way, $7.4 million. They still have to pay him all his money. It just doesn't count against the cap. So AEG would have to be okay with going out and getting another designated player for X number of thousands, millions of dollars, and paying that person as well, right? So there's financial hurdles to making that the possibility if Chicharito is indeed done for the rest of the season. Again, total speculation. Stay out of my DMs and text messages.
What do you think? What would you do if you were LA Galaxy?
I think I'm a wrong person to ask about this.
How productive has he been?
Chicharito, he's been horrible. And he's the only person who's been worse, I think, is Joveljic, and Joveljic has scored more goals. But I just did it because people in the Discord were arguing. They're like, oh, if Vanny just would trust Dejan Joveljic. I'm like, Jesus, how many more times does the dude need to start or get any long relief in there to not be the guy? He's getting chances. He's absolutely...
Yeah, he is. When I was there on Monday, because I was covering the U.S. men's national team, I ran into Panda and Damien.
Mm-hmm.
They were covering the team. And I was walking out of the press room and, going past the weight room and stuff.
Yep. Oh, tell
and
the story.
It was pretty empty in there, except Dejan was in there
working. What was he doing? Did he look angry? I always feel like he's angry.
He looked really intense, and of course I didn't want to spy, but he was on the mats on the floor, and it looked like he was working out, doing lift, sit-ups and things like that. There was one of the trainers with him, and it was a while after everyone had gone, and it seemed like he was there and he was working his ass off.
Yeah.
He does. He does. He's a hard worker.
He is. He
really wants so desperately. I think this team needs to stop trying so hard.
Oh my God, please don't say that too loud. People will get angry at you for that, but you're absolutely 100% right. They run around like they're chicken with their head cut off because they're like, we have to score right now. And Vanny has said it. I know we're at the point in press conferences where people don't want to hear Greg Vanny anymore because he'll tell them what he sees is the problem and they don't like that, right? And then they're like, well, blah, blah, blah. He needs to stop making excuses and all that. I was like, he just told you why they lost. He told you right there. The defense in the middle was too soft. Is Greg Vanny supposed to play defense? Now, he's in charge of setting the team up and doing things, but it's not like he doesn't see what's happening. And he has said it many times that this team tries too hard, that they try. My best example of this is probably in that second half. The Galaxy, I think, might have been 3-2. They were doing okay. They had a nice build-up, a little bit in transition, and Puig was in there playing. The ball bounced out to Gino Vivi, and I am a believer that Vivi could be a good depth piece in the future. He is being put in a position where he's not going to succeed. He's getting minutes, but he's not the guy that they really want there. And he sort of has to play those minutes, and he's doing it, so he's not going to look the best, right? And so he's just got to put his head down, try his hardest, and try to get better every single game. And I think he does some good things right. But in this particular case, the ball bounces out to Vivi, and it's like there's a little bit of space. And so Vivi takes one touch, and then he launches a shot, and it goes into row Z. And you're like, you didn't need to rush that. You had the numbers. You had the attack. You had things spread out in the proper space, and you rushed it. And all of the Galaxy players, Ricky Puig is probably the biggest one who rushes shots, forces things into spots where it doesn't need to be forced, right? And giving up possession on those things. So that's one of those things for me that I look at. You're right; they try too hard.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when he says it and he talks about it in the presses in particular, and the way he justifies what he's saying, you can see it. I think that there is definitely part of it. I get people are tired of Greg's voice a little, hearing him explain. a lot of the stuff. However, there aren't a lot of managers in this league, I don't think, that get into the details the way he does, Josh.
Right.
I mean, he really tries to make everyone explain kind of what went wrong.
Right.
And of course, sometimes you think, oh, I'm not an idiot, I can see it. But when he explains it, you do see it with a different set of eyes. And I don't think it's a cop out to say that this team just try too hard. Sometimes they're all over the place.
All over the place.
I mean, it's just out of their position, just positionally, they try too hard, let alone when they have the ball.
It is. That was one of the things that we saw against in that first RSL game where they ended up winning and they scored the first goal and they came through and they did all that stuff, right? Is that we saw them be composed in possession. We saw them be composed in transitional moments. We saw them hit the right pass, move into the right space, make the final pass, and score the goals, right? We saw these things that were developing, and they didn't look like they were overrunning or overpassing or doing all this stuff. And then you go to the game against them in this U.S. Open Cup, and, listen, that penalty screwed the LA Galaxy, all right? It was a horrible time to pick up a penalty. Whether you believe that Aude deserved to be whistled for a penalty or not,
mental's a whole other issue with this team. Ooh, boy, that's a whole other show.
It is, and we've talked about it. They go in the tank whenever this type of stuff. But to go down 2-0, eventually go down 3-0, and then for the Galaxy to come back and get 3-2 is a positive in a negative, right? It's a positive that's wrapped in a whole bunch of negatives because they shouldn't have been in the position. That being said...
But why? I mean, they're playing away from home in a cup game and they're terrible. Why wouldn't they be in that position? I don't know what fans are expecting anymore.
I said if I often talk about the Open Cup and the draw, and it's the draw depends on your success more than anything. If the Galaxy had a home game against RSL for that game, they win that game. Because there wasn't enough separating those two teams to say that either one was better than the other, and you saw it over the difference of a week. They each finished 3-2, one on either side of the thing. So I think if the Galaxy are at home, they...
See, Josh, the difference with this team as well, real quick, is that they're already having problems in a lot of areas of the pitch, right? They have issues at the back. They've got issues in not as many in the midfield, however, scoring goals, but issues up front. They're not doing the basics right. So when it comes down to games with fine margins, they haven't mastered that
They
yet.
don't have the fine margin game, do they?
They don't have the fine margins because they don't even have the basics.
No. Andrew, by the way... sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Andrew, by the way, big shout out to Andrew. Good to see you, buddy. $10 super chat. I think part of the problem is it's the same answers to the same questions. He's not playing defense or scoring goals, but Greg is in charge of fixing the issues. Absolutely correct. He is. I would also say that whenever you have guys like Caligari who get a wide open shot at the back post and they miss it by like 7 yards from 8 yards away, I'm like, I can't put that one on Greg Vanney. It's like there's a lot of things I can't put on, but with like Joveljic, Joveljic was supposed to be the answer to a lot of this stuff. Joveljic in 23 starts has 6 goals. 6 goals of which he scored in 4 games. So as a starter, Joveljic has only scored out of his 23 regular season starts, has only scored in 4 games in 23 starts. 4 games, 23 starts. That doesn't count U.S. Open Cups, by the way, because some of the talent that they were going against, right, is not up to MLS level, right? So I didn't count those. But when he starts in an MLS regular season game, 23 starts, he has only scored in 4 games. Now in two of those games he scored twice, right? So he got 2 goals, so 6 goals in the 23 is sort of that's 7. That means he's scoring in 17% of the games. That's a problem. Chicharito not scoring, that's a problem. Chicharito now being injured. As much as I would love to say that, he wasn't really producing anyway, the Chicharito not being available, if he's out for any period of time, is a huge blow to this LA Galaxy team because Sophie, at least we know he has a history of scoring goals and can do that, right?
Exactly.
He knows how to do it, right? So it was a matter of if you get him hot, he'll start scoring goals. Maybe it all falls into place. There's nobody else who has that history on this team, especially at forward. So you're left now with Dejan Joveljic as a result of this, and Preston Judd. Those are your striker sort of situations.
And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. And a team like this shouldn't be in that situation. I don't know if, Dejan is going to have one of those, if Chicha's out for a long period, that he feels like the main man. Something about him makes me feel like he wants to feel like it's his job. He's been given the job.
Right.
Here's your job. You are now the goal scorer for LA Galaxy. There's something mentally, I think, about him where it's not that he hasn't been given the love here, because he certainly has been given the love.
And he's been a super sub extraordinaire. I mean, the man, whenever he comes on as a sub, is a menace, right? And that's sort of the thing. It's like, how can you say that he's not being used right? Because people are, he needs to start. He gets starts. He's gotten a lot of starts, especially with Chicharito. And then you watch him as a sub, and he comes on. You're like, how do you not use that guy as a sub all the time? Like, because he's so much more dangerous as a sub than he is in any sort of either long relief or start. So,
would you have taken a Chicho for a Chicha? Would you have swapped a?
I mean, I think RSL getting Chicho is a great signing for that. How did how did nobody else be like, oh, LAFC dumped him?
Where did that come from?
And LAFC dumped him, and then they go out and get him. Like, of course they should have got. This is why people are
they
always
dumped the wrong player, mate.
Well, it's one of those that I sit there and I go, people are always saying, Josh, you should be president of the LA Galaxy. And I'm like, I didn't even think for a second that anybody should go after Chicho. After LAFC moved him out of the league, I was like, oh, well, that's done. Okay. And it's like,
just solved the co-president's deal.
What, me? I'm in charge?
I'll be your second in command.
Okay.
Okay. So I won't be the co-president. You can be the president, and then I'll be like number two.
You guys just bring me decisions, and then I'll make decisions. I love making decisions. That's fun.
And those Venezuelan sandwiches you love. I'm having a brain malfunction right now. What are those called?
What was it? I'm sorry.
The things, the pupusas, is it?
The pupusas, yeah, pupusas. Yeah, that's all I need to be paid in.
They're not Venezuelan, are they?
No, they're Salvadoran.
Salvadorian.
Yeah, that's so good. Anyway, so that's sort of taking a look at that. I wanted to get to this real quick, and then I want to talk about the game against St. Louis, because I know we're gabbing, we're talking, we're having a good time.
It's my fault.
The Wall of Champions was put up by the CONCACAF champions. It used to be league. They've decided to switch it back to cup again. And one of the fun things about the CONCACAF Champions Cup is that the LA Galaxy won a CONCACAF Champions Cup. So they're changing it back, and they decided to put up this whole list of teams that have won the Wall of Champions, that have won the Champions League, Champions Cup, the Superliga, whatever it was called at whatever time, right? The LA Galaxy won it in 2000. I would like to remind you, DC United was the first MLS team to win it in 1998. The Sounders won Champions League, obviously, last year in 2022. Those are the MLS teams that have done it, and then you can go through all the other teams that are there. But I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes we get skewed, and I think with Messi coming on, I wanted to bring this up. With Messi into the league, you are going to get friends, especially whenever the Galaxy play Miami. If they play them at Dignity Health Sports Park next year, they're going to have Messi in Miami, and perhaps they're even going to play that game in the Rose Bowl. And while that bristles hair on the back of my neck to sort of be like, don't do that. Play them at your home. Just be normal about it. Don't try to money grab it. I could understand if they wanted to do that. So if you have friends who are suddenly like, I want to go to the LA Galaxy game and see Messi, what you do is you say, absolutely, I will take you to that game. Absolutely, I will take you. Here's how much tickets are going to cost. Pay me back. I would love to take you to a soccer game here in the United States, and I want you to see what soccer is like in the United States. And if it's a spectacle with Messi there and Miami and the Galaxy playing and whatever giant designated player they have next year that is huge, Cristiano Ronaldo on one side and Messi on the other side, and all these things that can sort of happen, take them to that. Do not be a gatekeeper of soccer. My good friend Pam, who's down in Florida, who's a diehard LA Galaxy fan, she put out a post, and it made so much sense to me, which was, don't gatekeep this. Invite people in, because if you invite people in, you never know, they might stick around, right? And if not, they go and see a soccer game and that's it. Then they throw it away and they say, I saw Messi. But don't gatekeep this. Take your friends. Go and enjoy the spectacle that is soccer. And with Messi coming in, don't gatekeep the stuff. There's the Galaxy won a CONCACAF Champions Cup. They won a CONCACAF Champions League. They won a Superliga in 2000. People will forget that because everybody likes to forget the history of things whenever it changes names. But as somebody, Sophie, Premier League and everything else that it has been up until that point, they all count, don't they? The stars are still there, right?
100%. No one's going to take Liverpool's European Cups. You try taking Aston Villa's European Cup away from them, or Nottingham Forest's two European Cups away from them. It's never going to happen. Absolutely not. And you try and take Arsenal's or Liverpool's or Manchester United's, Manchester United, they didn't really win much before the Premier League. Sorry. No,
you're not.
Take any Division 1 titles from before it became the Premier League.
Right.
In 92, rebranding money is what changed the English game. So, 100%. Well said about the Messi thing as well.
By the way,
really
Andrew said, Andrew in the chat goes, hand up if your homies who you've tried to bring to games are asking you about tickets against Miami. I know, Andrew. I know. Hey, dude, get them into the Riot Squad, man. You'll convert some. I promise. You won't convert all of them. All right. The Galaxy are all about converting new fans, right? Converting new fans and trying to get them to come back to games and doing all this stuff. The Galaxy are sinking serious money into all of that marketing to do it. I think if your friends around, you need to do that too. Get 10 of your friends, maybe you'll convert 2 of them and bring them in, but don't gatekeep it. Enjoy the time that we are about to see. Let's go over standings real quick. Eastern Conference, FC Cincinnati at the top. Nashville, Philadelphia, New England, Atlanta, Columbus, DC, Orlando, and Charlotte are your playoff teams in the East. In the West, look, St. Louis, those guys, the Galaxy play them, is first in the Western Conference, having played just 15 games, much like the LA Galaxy. Seattle, LAFC, Dallas, San Jose, Vancouver, Minnesota, Austin, and Salt Lake. You have to go all the way down to the bottom. As we said before, the felt on the bottom of the table that keeps your floors from being scuffed is currently the LA Galaxy. So far down on the table, they're the felt on the bottom. I don't know if that works anymore. I just like it. It's a nice visual for me. If we look at the Supporters Shield right now, it's FC Cincinnati. Cincinnati, Nashville, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Seattle, New England, LAFC, and Dallas. The Western Conference is a bit of a nightmare, as it usually is. The LA Galaxy heading off to St. Louis on Saturday. We talked about it. Media availability on Friday. They'll fly on Saturday. 10 a.m. game. 10 a.m. body clock for the LA Galaxy, playing St. Louis at City Park. That one's on Apple TV and free. It's free Apple TV and Fox for that one. And then the Galaxy will be home on 6/21 to play Sporting Kansas City. We talked about that. All the fans back. It should be quite the party. The Galaxy have a good chance of winning that game, and then off to Colorado.
I missed that game.
Oh, man. July is a busy month as well. Galaxy start by going to San Jose, and then it will be, by the way, going to San Jose at Stanford Stadium, and then it's going to be the LA Galaxy hosting LAFC on July 4th at the Rose Bowl. That's going to be a pretty big game, I imagine. LA Galaxy hosting Philadelphia Union, tough game. LA Galaxy away to Vancouver. LA Galaxy now into the Leagues Cup with a game hosted against Lyon and a game hosted against Vancouver. That's where the schedule is currently leading everybody. Let's get you ready for this St. Louis game. LA Galaxy headed to St. Louis to play St. Louis for the very first time. City Park, St. Louis, Missouri, June 11, 2023. 10 a.m. is your kickoff time. 10 a.m. is your TV start time. Fox and Apple TV free. And I'm told, at least right now, kickoff is at 10:05 a.m. We'll see if that changes. But right now, 10:05 is your start time for that. So remember, you can always watch the games on MLS Season Pass. You can also watch it on Fox over the air for free as well. So don't want to hear you. This is the time when I say do not complain about any TV deal. These games are happening all the time. So you're able to watch the LA Galaxy if you're there. St. Louis, as I mentioned, Sophie, the top of the Western Conference, the cream of the crop right now in the West. They're 9-5-1 for 28 points. That's 16 more points than the LA Galaxy, I would just like to point out. The Galaxy have 12 points, and they're 16. So the gap between the LA Galaxy and St. Louis is large enough that the gap is 16 points, and the Galaxy only have 12 points total on the entire year. I just thought that was interesting.
Wow.
Just for me. Whenever we look at St. Louis, they've won 3 of their last 4. They just beat Houston on June 3rd, 3-0, and then they lost at Dallas 2-0. When you look at the games that they have played at home recently, Sophie, the last 3 games at home, 4-0 win over Sporting Kansas City, 3-1 win over Vancouver, and a 3-0 win over Houston. So they're 10-1 in goals for opponents in their last 3 home games. And when you look at SKC, not a great team. Vancouver, not a great team. Houston, not a great team. They are racking up the goals on the LA Galaxy. They have 10 goals in here. How many goals do the LA Galaxy have in total so far? Because they had 10 in their last home games. The Galaxy have 13 total for the whole season.
Wow.
And St. Louis has scored 10 in just their last 3 home games.
They're cooking over there. There's no doubt about it.
This doesn't feel like a game where the Galaxy are going to win. I mean, is that? I mean, it's obvious, right? That nobody's surprised that you say that. But whenever you look at the midweek game against RSL, doing all this stuff, and then traveling all the way to St. Louis, and then you're asking them to put in a shift, and they're not that good anyway. And now Chicharito's down, and what does that even look like? Memo Rodriguez also down right now.
I think this could be a not watershed moment. That's a bit dramatic. It's very Greek and dramatic.
A turning point.
No, there's a turning point, but let me tell you, it's not going north. That's for sure.
Okay.
It's heading south. This could be a drubbing. This could be really embarrassing.
It could be
because they're cooking so much over there that their crowd. A friend of mine, you can follow him. Well, you don't want to follow him. He's part of the St. Louis backroom staff over there. I mean, there's a good vibe over there. That everyone's happy. The club is, just kicking butt in their inaugural season. They're having a blast, and it's going to be really tough to go into that environment, firstly, and secondly, to have to play football against a team that really believe in themselves and are super confident. And you know what? They're having fun.
Oh, they're having
enjoying
fun.
Playing football.
Interesting. St. Louis, more of a counterattacking team. It certainly shows it by their stats. 45% possession is their average. Galaxy with 56% possession, so almost a good 10 or 11% difference in terms of the possession that they normally have. Galaxy get more shots on average than St. Louis does, but shots on goal, 5 for St. Louis, 4.7. These are all season averages as we sort of look at it. Again, I said that the Galaxy get more block shots than people. 3.4 block shots to 5.5 block shots. All right. How else do I know they're a counterattacking team? 354.8 passes is the average for them, and 540 passes is the average for the LA Galaxy, right? So again, possession-based versus counterattacking. We have talked about the fact that whenever you get a counterattacking team against the LA Galaxy, in terms of a real, true counterattacking team, Sophie, with transitions and everything, transitional defense and things, that the Galaxy struggle. Because the Galaxy love to hold possession, but a really true, good transitional, offense team, the Galaxy have trouble holding on to that because they'll overcommit, and whenever they overcommit, the transition usually comes. So, keys to this game for me: LA Galaxy, transitional defense, transitional defense, transitional defense. The longer you can hold St. Louis without a goal in their own home, on the road, the better off. I know these are things, but it's stuff the LA Galaxy have not done well. Getting the first goal would be huge. I don't pretend that would ever be something that the Galaxy could do in St. Louis. Hey, maybe they get luck out and they get a penalty kick of some sort, and they can bury it. By the way, Gaston Bergman 2 for 2 now in penalty kicks. Feeling a little better about him taking penalty kicks than ever. And he hits it harder than I think I've ever seen anybody hit penalty kicks. So, which works really well until it's high pressure, and then he launches it into a street somewhere. So for me, transitional defense. And it's then
not going to save them.
No, of course. And who's the offensive threat? I mean, who for the Galaxy? There's 3 guys who have 5 goals for St. Louis. The Galaxy's highest goal scorer is Dejan Joveljic with 2. That's it. This feels like a disaster. That's what this feels like. Yeah, it does.
Which sometimes when you're expecting an absolute disaster class, I'm not saying you get a master class, but you get a result. And, you're going to find out a lot about this team in the next 5 games. I think Greg Vanney has 5 games to save his job.
I mean, here's the deal.
He should have, let me correct that.
Yeah.
He should have 5 games
to
save his job.
This is the only thing that I'll say on Greg Vanney and firing him. If you fire him, you better have the coach that you're ready to pick up ready immediately. There should be no gap in the terms, because otherwise, let this play out. There's no rush, because the Galaxy are where they're at. If you think that if you're at the point where you're firing a coach, you're saying my season's basically toast anyway. Do not. But the problem is that with the playoffs and with how close you can get, if you're going to go to, and listen, I've heard the names bandied about a whole bunch of times. If you're going to go to Greg Berhalter, right, then Berhalter better be like waiting outside the door as you fire Greg Vanney. And you're like, here you go, Greg, all set, take over the team, because there's no need for there to be a transition for any of this stuff. You have too much at stake in terms of all of the projects that you have going on inside that front office. And with an off season that is as big as it's supposed to be, and Lex said it at the very beginning, how big is this off season? You do not want to be installing a new coach in the off season. You want them to already be installed, already know the team, already know what's missing, what they want from that off season. You can't do another thing where they wait.
If you feel like you can really make the playoffs with this roster, then yes. If you don't, then you just can't. There is something fundamentally not clicking with this team, and it is evident. You cannot play this many games in a season and be playing like that. It is not the worst roster in MLS. It is not. There are some talented players on this team. It's just not coming together. And at some point, you have to just stop with the excuses of the Kleins and the this and the transfer. The manager has to manage that team to get points and win games.
Right.
And somehow it's not happening this season.
Yeah.
And if you go 5 more games, you put that chart up where you had the schedule. The next 5 games against teams that are you got one of the best teams in the league right now.
Yep.
You're going away to a team, okay, they're not the same, are they, Kansas? That they have been
that's
over
home.
the years.
That's
However,
a home game. So LA Galaxy hosts Kansas City. They should they should win that game.
Yeah, a home game.
Yeah, Colorado on the road is always difficult. So
always difficult. Never an easy match.
Right. Away to San Jose, not easy.
Away to San Jose. Not
Home
easy.
to
Then you've got the
LAFC,
derby.
home to Philadelphia. I mean,
But you're not home either, are you? Because you're at the Rose Bowl.
you're at the Rose Bowl, and then you are home to Philadelphia. I mean,
Those are tough matches.
those are unbelievably tough matches, and they're 4 days apart. So they're 4 days apart.
Yeah. This is like the pain is going to get worse before it gets better. And I think fans need to prepare themselves for that.
I mean, here's the thing, and I will say this, and that I catch crap for this stuff all the time. You put Greg Vanney in a situation that no coach has ever been in before, and then you're surprised that he fails. And that's with the transfer ban and trying to put together a strategy that.
But he's had how many transfer windows before this ban?
No, but okay, so he had a plan put together, right? You have a plan. You're like, oh, we're going to make these moves. We're going to do these things. Then you know that you don't have a summer transfer window, and that it has to be at least adjusted in what your plan is doing. You're asking somebody to do something that nobody's done, right? I know people think that's crazy, but managers and players and everybody are creatures of understanding the habit that they have formed and the experiences that they have had, right? And so you put a transfer ban on somebody and you say, we have to go about this first transfer window different than all the other transfer windows that we've gone through. And then you have to manage your way through this million, basically it seems like they sold Julian Araujo in order to negate the fines that they had, right? The $1 million in general allocation money and stuff like that. I have a real question is, do they sell Julian Araujo to Barcelona at that time if they don't have the sanctions put against them? I don't know the question. I don't know the answer to that. We knew he was going to go eventually. That was always the thing. But did they move him because they did, right? Because they needed the money back.
People underestimated what a cultural blow that was to this team.
Big. Well,
losing that player.
I've had multiple conversations in the last 2 days with people who have said it's pretty surprising that they miss Sasha Kljestan and Victor Vasquez this much too, right?
100%.
And you can see it in a lot of what they're doing. I think they have some senior leadership. I think they're okay. You know who one of the big senior leaders on this team is? Zavaleta is one of the big senior team leaders on this team. I know people don't like to hear that, but but they're missing something. They need a little more. Victor Vasquez, Sasha Kljestan, those were the guys that, they were sort of, I think they thought maybe Yuri was going to be that guy. But yeah, anyway, all good. That's what I say though. That's my perspective is right now. You can get rid of them. Go ahead, wipe it clean, start a new plan over again. Because why not? This will be the fifth one or the sixth one. That's my whole point is that.
But if you're going to start clean, you gotta go clean.
We played this game. We played this game though. We played the clean. I know it's not completely clean with Klein.
Until you get it right. That's sports. Sports is about instant gratification. It's about now. You can't keep building. It's 3 years now.
Right.
What else do you need to see that's going to be different after 3 years?
Well, I mean,
right?
again, I would still argue that you've given them 2.5 years and half a transfer window. And so it's like, listen, nobody gets it right all the time. I think they got Aude right. I think they got Caligari right. I like Jalen Neal in the position that they're at.
You saw it the last 10 games of last season. And similarly, again, like Mikel Arteta last season, you could see it. You started seeing it. So you say to yourself, okay, hold your horses. Just be patient, right? You saw it for those games.
Yep.
I actually wrote in the chat earlier. I'm telling you right now, I truly believe if Koulibaly clears that proper and it doesn't go out for a corner,
right?
I'm telling you LA Galaxy are winning that match.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was a mistake between Sega and Bond. Yeah,
I mean, seriously, right? So you saw something, and you saw the disappointment in that team in the press when we were standing in the hallway at BMO Now Stadium.
Right.
You could tell they felt they could have won and should have won that match.
Yep.
That eye of the tiger, that does not exist in this team. This group doesn't have what that team had in those last 10 games. At all.
I'll say that I agree with that. And then so then you go back to that team, and where were the successes for that team? Why were they successful down that 10 to 12, right? And we've talked about Ricky and Gaston coming into that team, but what else was on that team?
The transfer window, of course, was the game changer in that. Yeah,
it was. And Julian Araujo was a big part of that team, right? The assist leader on the club. You got rid of him.
Yes.
Samuel Grandsir down the stretch. Remember, people were ready to throw Samuel Grandsir out with the bathwater, the Cabral bathwater, but he was outstanding down that, and you lost him in the offseason, right? Not because you wanted to get rid of him, but because he had a personal issue and you had to get rid of him, and then they failed to replace him adequately. Now, we can put that on them, which I think that I did whenever I talked to Will. I said, you guys could have got another winger in, and it maybe would have saved you guys from being in last place right now. Which I think is a fair criticism. But at the same time, they still haven't replaced Cabral, or they haven't replaced Grandsir / Cabral with that stuff. That's why they were successful, because they had wings. We all know it. Everybody sees it. And we can put that on Vanny, which I believe is fair. I'm just saying that give them whatever this transfer window is in the middle of the summer, because they say that they're going to fix some things, right? And if they can fix some things with all of the handcuffs that are placed on them, right? And now the burden of Chris Klein being lifted from them as well. This is their chance to do it, and they're going to do it. And they're going to do it, I think, because Will Kuntz is there, and you listen. They're going to do it responsibly. This isn't going to be. I heard a chance to sell this team out in terms of getting a big name and doing stuff at the end of the transfer window and trying to do stuff, all sorts of crazy things to try and make the team better before the transfer window. And they ultimately said, we're not going to do it to leverage the future. If you have somebody making those decisions like that, then you have to give them a little bit of that future. And I think the chat room makes a great point. Somebody made a great point. Nobody gets to be fired. Nobody gets to go anywhere until the LA Galaxy go back and either have a president or a GM or anything like that, because who else is making that call right now? Dan Beckerman has to fire Greg Vanny at this point. And Dan Beckerman was the guy who kept Chris Klein for way too long, right? And so I don't think anybody would trust his decision-making at this point. So get a GM, get a president in, fill the front office, do the things, and then toss Vanny out on his butt if they don't think that he is integral to how this team is going.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But if he doesn't start getting results... because at the end of the day, it's results. This team cannot afford, to not get results, not make the playoffs, while other teams are growing and prospering around them. And every single year, the gap gets wider and wider and wider. And he's had his chances. This is his team, Josh. He built
a lot of his team. A lot of his team. Chicha wasn't his, right? That's one. Douglas Costa's still up in the air. I've been told multiple times, multiple things, so I don't know whether or not that was his call or not.
Is he fit to play properly now? Like, can he play?
I mean, maybe. Damien asked the question afterwards of how confident Greg was in...
Yeah, that was a good question.
In sort of his ability to be consistently available. And Greg answer the question. I don't remember exactly what he said. It wasn't that. It was a better question than it was an answer, right? It's one of those.
Time will tell, basically.
Yeah, it's one of those. But he says he likes him because he brings balance to the formation. He is correct. He does. The Galaxy aren't one-sided whenever Douglas Costa is there, because, as you saw, they actually scored from the right-hand side. When Tyler Boyd is there, he's mostly a left-sided player. He starts on the left side, although the Galaxy very often move Boyd into that second striker role as well. And then again, everything funnels through the middle, and then there's no width again. So, I think as much as patience isn't earned from this, I'm still going to preach it for a little bit, because things have to be unscrewed. right? There's a lot of things to unwind. You talked about cutting the loose threads. A lot of loose threads need to be cut. I agree. And you need to unwind everything that has sort of been done to this team, because this is not a normal year.
Maybe the manager's one of those threads.
Could be. Absolutely could be. I would imagine if the results continue this way that he won't be long for this, because you have to do something. He has to show a turnaround. He has to show some sort of turnaround in this next stretch, knowing that this next stretch is just absolutely brutal. Outside of the Sporting Kansas City game. Be at the Sporting Kansas City game. That might be the best chance you see the LA Galaxy win in a long time.
I think I'm away. Is that the one on the 21st?
It's the one on the 21st. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here.
All right.
I'm going to be in Europe.
All right. Well, poor you. Wow. All right. Anything else? Do you have any predictions besides this has the potential to be absolutely horrible for St. Louis?
5-2 to
St. Louis,
to the Midwestern team.
All right. 3-1. They're I don't know who scores that one, by the way. I love giving the LA Galaxy goals, and I'm like, I have no idea who scores, but somebody does. I don't know where the two are coming. Maybe one's an own goal. One's a penalty kick and one's an own goal. All right, there you go. We solved the problem. All right, let's see. LA Galaxy facing off against St. Louis again, coming up on Sunday, June 11th, 2023. 10 a.m. is your TV start time. 10:05 a.m. apparently is your kickoff. I still expect that to slide. With Fox involved, that usually means it's like a 25-minute lead-in. But that's not what they're saying right now. They're saying 10:05. So check with the league website closer to everything, and maybe we'll have a better answer. Just a reminder or a heads up, I will not be providing coverage for this game. I have some family stuff to do at that particular time. So I will watch that game after it's over, and hopefully I'll watch it with a nice, cool, calm head, be able to watch everything. All right. Anything else, Sophie, you good?
No, I'm good. I'm hoping that all that we've spoken about with this game this weekend is completely the opposite that will ensue.
Reverse jinx.
So, yes.
Reverse jinx. All right. Tell people where they can find you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Give us a follow at Highbury Squad and come hang out. And thank you once again for having me, Josh, and hope everyone is epic and you are awesome, and cheers to everyone in the chat for being so lovely.
Thanks, Sophie. Certainly appreciate it. Make sure you go follow Sophie on Twitter and all that fun stuff at Soccer Diva. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, of course, at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's back up and running, where you can find all of our podcasts, all the shows, anything else that we put up there is certainly there at cornerofthegalaxy.com. All right, LA Galaxy headed off to St. Louis on Sunday morning, a breakfast game. Get those breakfast burritos out, get those mimosas out. You'll be enjoying it while the LA Galaxy face off against the best team in the West. The best in the West versus the worst in the West. All right, for Miss Sophie Buchanan Nicolaou, I'm Josh Patrick Guesman. You've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.